Emily Hefling Crouch. I'm a 2007 corps member from New York City. I am still in New York with Uncommon Schools. I was placed at Leadership Prep Bed-Stuy. I taught there for 6 years, and then this past year I launched Leadership Prep Canarsie, and still had the opportunity to teach at Leadership Prep Brownsville the 3rd and 4th grade back. So I got to do kind of the best of both worlds. Before we dive in, I'd love for you to just introduce yourself to the people at your table, who you are, where you're from, what you teach and what you lead, and then also one of your current favorite students and why. Okay? So we'll do it like that. Go ahead, please. Oh, and I'm sorry, I'll be a little bit more clear with the directions. No need to go all the way around the table, just find one person and kind of have that moment with that one person.
So hi.
So one thing I'll do is you all figured it out. When I bring it back together, I'll just raise my hand, and I ask that you raise your hand too, and then we'll just come back together naturally. My current favorite student, one of my current favorite students is Jasara John. She is 6 years old. She just finished kindergarten with us. She is on the spectrum, and she is so intelligent, and she is so hilarious. And her trademark move is whenever another child is corrected for anything, she just yells out, "Hey, leave him alone." Every time without fail, "Hey, leave him alone." You look at her, and then she immediately says, "Sorry." So it's her flow, and it's pretty great. So let's dive into the work that we're going to do together. I want to start by just introducing Great Habits, Great Readers. Is there anyone who's familiar with this text in the room? Okay, so great, about half of us. So I'm part of Uncommon Schools. We have 38 schools in the Northeast. And in addition to running outstanding schools, we have a really vibrant learning community. So every year at Uncommon, we launch 2 or 3 working groups. And the topics range from developing rookie teachers to K-4 reading. So in 2010, we launched K-4 reading. We brought together experienced teachers and leaders and deans. And what we did was we looked at our top results. We looked at our teachers who were getting the top results, and we videotaped it. And we videotaped hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of hours. We watched what they did. We all had footage that we had to watch. We'd cut the best clips. We'd come back together. We'd show the clips, and we'd codify what those teachers were doing. And so 2 years later, we published Great Habits, Great Readers, which talks about our Read Aloud program, our reading comprehension program, our guided reading program, habits of discussion, and much more. And so today, in our hour and a half, I chose to do habits of discussion with you. And the reason that I chose habits of discussion, there are so many reasons, but I will start with a quick story. So yesterday I was flying out, and I was just looking on my iPhone, and I was reading the top articles from The Guardian. And I came across this article, Mexican police rescue 458 children in raid on home. And so I looked into the article, and the astonishing part was that this home was purportedly a state home, and these people had told the parents of the children that they were state officials and that this was a forced foster home and that their children needed to be taken to this forced foster home, okay? This has been going on for years. I think it said 3 years it has been going on, and the parents said okay, right? And they had weekly visits, and they would come, and as of late, they cut down the number of visits. They said, you can't visit as often, you can't do that. And so one person went through the legal system, went to the police, and said, what's going on? Why can't we see our children? If this is a state home, if we have rights. And the police said, what are you talking about? This foster home that you're speaking of doesn't exist. And so yesterday, this is when the article came out, they rescued 458 children who had been abused, who had been forced into labor, the list goes on, and who had been in there for years, okay? And so now tie this back to habits of discussion. When we think about the hallmark of an educated person, the hallmark of an educated person is to be able to articulate oneself well, to be able to advocate on oneself's behalf, and to be able to ask the right questions in a situation that doesn't seem quite right. So bless these parents' hearts. They hadn't received the education that we have. They hadn't received the education that we're providing to our children, and so they weren't able to advocate on their behalf. And so when we think about why habits of discussion is so important, it's because each and every one of us wants to make sure that our children has a voice, and that they're confident in speaking, and that their voice will be heard. And so with that, I'd like to dive into our work. And so what we're going to do is we're going to start with a case study. So if you'll flip to page 2 of your packet, we're going to look at 2 different case studies that focuses on a guided reading discussion around this text, teamwork. And so just so we're on the same page, I want everybody to take about 1 minute and read over this text, please. Okay, so as we look over the case study on the next page, we're going to be thinking about 3 things: teacher actions, student actions, and the information that the teacher is gaining about the students in her class. And so for this to feel real, I'm going to ask for some volunteers. There's someone who will be Miss X, please. So many options. Yeah, thank you so much. Okay, Miss X. Someone to be Elijah, please. Thank you so much. And then one more person to be Justice. Okay, thank you so much. And then where it says students or everyone, that's all of us. Okay? So let's go ahead and just take it live.
Okay. Did everyone get a chance to finish reading up to the Post-it note?
Yes.
What happened?
Well, Karina is upset because no one's playing with her. She got a lot of homework too, so she wants to get it done, so she went to the library to get it done.
Why is that important in the story?
Well, she doesn't want to play with those other kids now. She has homework that she needs to do, so she's new to school.
Well, why don't the other kids want to play with her?
They are jealous.
Exactly, they are jealous. Does everyone else see what Elijah is saying?
Yes. And look, it says right here, she wanted to get her homework done early.
Tell me more.
I know I have a lot of homework and I want to get it done. She just stopped worrying about those other kids.
I want you all to read this page. Read where Mr. Walker is talking to Karina. What did you learn there?
She was thinking. She was thinking about the other kids.
She was thinking about the other kids for what reason? Why was she thinking about them? Was it because of what Elijah said? They were jealous?
Yes.
Exactly right. Let's keep reading to see what happens next.
Okay. So just take 15 seconds, please, and jot down your notes. The teacher actions, what are the students doing, and what information does she gather? It's not all bad here, right? So highlight the things that the teacher's doing well also. Okay? Okay, let's open it up to the group. Let's start with just the teacher actions. What did you notice? Yes, and will you tell us your name, please?
Mary.
Mary, thanks.
She's really only talking to one student, engaging him in the conversation, and the other kids are just kind of saying yes or no. So she's only finding out what he's knowing.
Okay, so yes, and will you tell us your name?
Dante,
Thank you.
we talked a lot about how she has some critical questions, really probing the kids, provides support to the story, tell me more, which is good to draw more from the kids.
Great, so why is this important? Tell me more. So it's a good point. She's getting depth from the text. Other things you saw her do.
So 2 things. Curtis, she pushed for text-based evidence at one of the questions and towards the latter part of the discussion.
Yep.
And then to his point as well, like there weren't really like leading questions. There were questions that were open-ended that hopefully I think could eventually get have deeper conversations with kids, but
Nice.
didn't get there.
Nice.
just yet.
Let's talk students now. What are the students doing? Yes.
As a group, just nodding along and listening.
As a group, nodding along and listening. Anything else about the students? Someone talk to me about justice.
Justice kind of seems like she's beginning to challenge Elijah's idea. Like she doesn't outright say it's wrong, but she brings another perspective.
Great, great. And what about Miss X's interaction with justice? Yes.
She's not necessarily allowing her to do the heavy lifting, but she's saying yes, you're exactly right.
Yes, yes. So yes, you're exactly right. What else does she say before Justice comes out with her last yes? Yes, right over here. Kiana.
She kind of says like, yeah, she's thinking about that again, so this is why, like telling her
And what's the leading question? Say it again, sorry.
Why would she do something?
Why was she thinking about them? But there's one more that she's basically saying, like, this is it.
Oh, because it's jealous.
Yes, right? So do you agree with them, right? Anytime you say to a child, like, do you agree with them? Yeah, they're gonna agree every single time. You know, that moment where she's like, exactly, what do you all think, right? Well, we all think what you think. And then information on the rest of the students, I think we already hit on this. So basically what we see from the teacher, she's interacting with Elijah. Her questioning includes strong hints, right? When you say exactly, do you agree? You're done for. We've already talked about that. The other students are nodding along and listening, someone pointed out. It's very unclear what the students know. We really don't have any idea. We have a sense of what Elijah knows, but that's about it. So now let's do Miss Settles. Let's look into her classroom. So if you will flip the page over. This is a little bit of a longer clip. It's about 5 minutes, so I'm going to stop it halfway through. Miss Settles' group has read the exact same excerpt of text, and we're going to pick it up. And again, the questions remain the same. What does Miss Settles do? What are her actions? What are the students at the table doing? And what information is she gathering? Okay?
Tell me about what you read. July, start us off.
What we read is that we know is that in the beginning of the story, Karina went to a new school and then she thought making friends were easy. And then after that, Karina started to play sports with the other kids to see if they wanted to be her friend, to see if that worked, so that they could be Karina's friend.
Curtis?
And it didn't work because when Karina was playing sports, she didn't get any friends because she was she always kept the ball to herself. She didn't pass it, she only just kept it to herself because they might have thought that she was cool at sports.
So he was elaborating, July. He was elaborating on your response, okay? Okay. So she's really good at sports. Continue, Curtis.
So at lunch she went to the library because there were any friends there. It was only her teacher, Mr. Walker, and Mr. Walker said that she should have went outside with the kids, but when she got home, she was crying because the other.
Can I stop you there? What do we think of Curtis's retell? His part of the retell? July is good, not verbal. You completely disagree? Or do you somewhat? Okay, so that's a big difference. What are you thinking?
I disagree, Curtis, because
what does Curtis need to include in his retell?
He needs to include their feelings. Curtis, you need to include their feelings and what they think.
Okay, is there anything else that Curtis needs to think about in his retell? What are you thinking, John? Curtis, because you're addressing Curtis.
Curtis, you also need to add in that Karina was at the library.
And you're not giving it to him. You want to prompt him.
Because Karina was at the library and she was sad.
Stop. You're giving it to him. We don't want to give it to Curtis. We want him doing the what? Okay. What does Curtis need to add, Jules?
about 15 seconds right now and just sort of catch up on your notes, and also really think specifically about the students and what information Ms. Settles is gathering about each of these students at the table. I'm going to pick us back up and we're going to watch the rest of it.
Karina went to the library because at the library, no one was there but Mr. Walker and Karina. So there was no kids in there trying to tease her.
Elias.
I disagree with her because she wanted to go to the library because she wanted to finish her homework early. I agree with you, Elias, because when I read the text in chapter 4, I even wrote it, and she said that no, they don't even want me on the team, and then she said that she wants to finish her homework early, so then what happened was
Do you agree with them?
that wasn't a good idea.
Ooh, so Curtis is getting a big idea. Curtis, tell them what you're thinking.
I'm thinking that when she went to the library and did homework, that wasn't a big idea because that was a part of the problem. It wasn't part of the problem because the problem was that the other kids didn't want her on the team, and that she thought that when she got home, she thought that she was a show-off.
So you see their responses. Where can you show them where your thinking was shown? Well, you were talking about why she went to the library, right? So where's the thinking shown there?
It wasn't the problem that she didn't want her homework done early. It was the problem that no one wants her on the team. And no one thought of her because all the other kids are just playing with their other friends instead of Karina.
What are you thinking now, Alejandra?
I think that now I agree because now the problem that I figure out the problem because when it said that they don't even want me on the team, then that means that was the problem because they don't even want her on the team and she wants to be on the team. But they just don't let her. So that's why
So if you'll start discussing with the people at your table, okay, teacher actions, what are students doing, and what has Ms. Settles gathered about each student at the table? What data does she have with each child? Yes.
We discussed it's just mediating more than like meetings. It's just the kids kind of took over and she was kind of just open with some top questions, but kind of in the backdrop, just kind of listening to the conversation.
I like that in the backdrop. Other things we noticed Ms. Settles doing? Yes.
Along the same lines, she gave a lot of time to the students to just talk and think and share.
Yes.
We were saying we felt like I myself probably would have jumped in earlier, and it was great to see how much time she gave.
Does anybody know the statistic on the average wait time we give students? Go ahead and just guess with seconds on your hands in the air. Go ahead and just make a quick guess. 4 seconds, 1 second, 6 seconds, 3 seconds. Average wait time is less than 1 second. It's because we're uncomfortable with silence, right? It's like, let's go, let's go, let's go. Somebody share. So it's a great point. Yes?
I was going to say, she also had students elaborate on the ideas that came before them, and so that stopped kids from just jumping around. I'm not listening to you, but I want to get my idea out there. So she definitely had them building.
Nice. Yes?
She also remained sort of not biased. So I think it's tempting sometimes when you're teaching to be like, are you sure about that answer? Or, yeah, okay, what do you think? So instead, she was totally, non-emotional and allowed the other students to just say, okay, what did you think? And allowed them to totally drive the conversation.
Nice point. Very nice point. Yes.
Thank you. I just thought it was really great how Curtis did to tweak his answer and going in a different direction. She was able to do that for the other students, and even talking to the students, don't get it to them, you need to prompt them with a question. And so just in that, she could have done a great teacher move where she scaffolded her questions so that she was gradually increasing the load that she has to do while still keeping it on purpose. And she could have even taught her kids that she could have even had this other scholars give the answer to Curtis, and then the cognitive load that is at least on a class. But instead she did it so that 100% of the cognitive load was on all the scholars, and she's just directing it.
Nice. And the difference I would teach children between prompting one another and hinting. Prompting is replicable. You can do it for question to question to question. A hint is specific to that question. So it starts with S, it rhymes with, right? Those are the hints or the direct answer. So the prompt is replicable. It's a nice point. Before we move on to the students, anything else you want to say about what you saw Miss Settles doing? Let's go both here. Let's go 1 and 2. Yes.
My name is Danielle. We were talking about also how she was using vocabulary to obtain from the text, and how she's also encouraging the students as well to use that vocabulary when they're explaining.
Nice.
I think we will probably have the same idea. I was going to say it was a text-based conversation, and so she specifically said, can you show us where this evidence is?
Yes.
So again, it's causing kids to go back and really identify that.
Versus Curtis, when Miss X asked, and Miss X was a transcript that also happened in our schools, so these are real things that are happening in our classrooms. When Miss X said, can you prove it in a text, why she wants to do her homework, does anybody remember what Elijah said? It's Elijah.
Because he heard himself.
Yes.
I like to finish my homework.
Yes. Will you say that a little bit louder, please?
He was saying, he related to himself. He said, because I like to finish my homework and get it done. So
Yes. So she was pushing towards text, but she allowed personal experience, right? So that's the real difference. The test of a text-based conversation is what you allow as the answer. What is the bar? Okay, so you guys nailed this, right? Ms. Settles, a lot of you picked up on the conversation is not between teacher-student, teacher-student, teacher-student. As young as kindergarten, we teach our kids, you talk to one another. You talk to one another, and you always use names, and you always give eye contact. If we think about life skills, eye contact is unbelievably important, right? Using someone's name. And so we instill that as young as 5. And then this is the piece. What's your name again, sir?
Jerry.
Jerry pointed out, children couldn't talk about whatever they wanted, right? They couldn't say, I disagree, and here's what I think. Right? Sometimes we think that kids are building when they say, I disagree with what you said, and now let me tell you what I think. No, that is not connected. I disagree with you, and let me tell you why I disagree with you. It was this part of your answer that I don't think was there. And so we teach the children and we facilitate that evaluation and that building up. And then she's also cueing the students. There's different opinions in the room about hand motions and what nonverbals you want, but there were certain things that she was doing, right? The eye contact, she was doing this. Right? Pointing to one another, not to me. Here, when she thought one student was rushing another student, right? This is what she did. And so she was cueing those habits of discussion, and she was also explicitly naming them when she said, he's not disagreeing with you, he's elaborating. And there's the key point where she also said, do you completely disagree? Right? As soon as you teach kids to do agree, disagree, whatever your signals are for that, they will disagree with everything because it wasn't said exactly how they were going to say it. And so you really have to teach kids what it means to say something in your own words, and that's still agreeing, and what it means to partially agree with something, right? Okay, let's talk about the students. Let's talk about all the students. What are they doing at the table? Most of the talking. Great. Other things the students are doing?
Really intently listening to each other.
And how do you know?
Because they were able to determine whether or not they agreed or disagreed, and they were able to elaborate and build off of each other.
Nice, yes.
Building on that, they're also making eye contact with the speaker, not
Can someone speak to what happened with Curtis? Especially towards the end? Yes.
I said a way that I really felt like he knew what he was trying to say, and after he was prompted by his classmates, he was better able to articulate it, and he really stuck to his argument. Like, no, that is not why she was in the library. She was in the library because they didn't want her on the team, not because she wanted to get her homework done. And I just loved that. Yes. He was okay with not being in line with whatever the process was. Yeah.
It was 3 versus 1. It was 3 versus 1. And a little background, Curtis, this was 2nd grade, I think Curtis is now in 8th grade. Bless Curtis's heart, Curtis is usually wrong, okay? But in this situation, Curtis was the only one at the table who was correct. It's not about wanting to get your homework done. That's not what the big idea or the big problem in this text is. It's that she feels left out, right? And this whole thing about homework is just a guise. And so then what happened with, is it Alejandra, I think, who was right next to him? Anybody pick up on what happened with her? Yes?
She felt comfortable to change her mind. Like she knew what it was to recognize that she got something wrong and change.
Yes. If all adults had that skill. Right? How difficult it is to know where you stand, to not let everyone influence you and you change your mind right away, and also to be willing when there's enough evidence presented to change course. That is a key skill that we want to teach our children. Any other notes? Yes?
This is a question. We were talking about this a little bit at our table. At what point in the year was this conversation?
That's a great question. This is 2nd grade, and that was November. Okay? And then the background on that would be, and as we talk, we're going to talk explicitly about the habits of discussion. We start teaching them in kindergarten. So these are kids that we had since kindergarten, so they were using the habits in kindergarten and 1st grade, and then this is what they looked like by November of their 2nd grade year. Okay. Great. So when we think about the students, I think you pointed out, right, how we think it's a small idea, but will you speak a little bit about the listening to one another? Were you talking about that, or was it you were talking about that? I'm sorry.
Oh, just the idea that, these are 2nd graders, and she's having them engage in a conversation where one kid is talking for a long time, but the other scholars at the table are able to respectfully wait and listen, and they're demonstrating that they're listening and comprehending what the points their classmates are making. But for 2nd graders to be building that skill of, I may disagree and I may strongly disagree, but I'm able to self-regulate myself long enough and still listen to my classmates. It's a really important skill to be teaching kids at any age, especially in 2nd grade.
It's huge. A prerequisite to listening, if you will. So with our kindergartners, what we do, before you can say whether you agree or disagree, you have to put what someone else said into your own words. And so when we're at the table, so Elijah will share, and then I'll go to Nazar and I'll say, Nazar, will you put that in your own words, please? Okay, Amber, will you put that in your own words, please? Okay, somebody else, will you put that? It's lengthy, but it's a skill that you're teaching, and then you say, beautiful, do we agree or do we disagree? And the point at which every child can put it into their own words as a habit, you no longer have to do that anymore. And then you can have real discussions, because it's just the worst when they disagree or agree and they didn't listen to a damn thing that somebody else said, right? And we've all been in situations where that's happened. Building off of and evaluating each other's responses, that's how we actually know they're listening to one another. And they're using the text. It's a text-based conversation. We are in the era of Common Core. There is nothing but a text-based conversation. And then final question, what information is Ms. Settles gathering about her students? And you can talk specifically, the one on the right, the one on the left, if you know names. What does she know about these 4 kids?
I think she notices one of them gets off whose attention quickly. There was one student that didn't play at all, who wouldn't lose focus. She had to tap tables, and she was there.
Absolutely. Other things she's gathering about the comprehension of the story. I'm at 12 seconds of wait time. Does it feel like an eternity? It does to me.
Julius has a very literal read of the story.
Yes.
So he's only saying exactly what was in the text about it being, she was in the library to do her homework. But then she is also gathering information with Curtis for their skins, but it's more than that.
Yes. And with Julius, Did you pay attention to the rest of the kids at the table who agreed and who disagreed?
A little bit.
Yes. Do you
yeah.
know?
I think that, well, John and was it Alejandra? They agreed at the beginning, and then Alejandra completely shifted her thinking.
Great. So right away from that opening question, and by their agree and disagree, we have one child who's giving a literal interpretation of the text. It's not enough. It's not enough to pass that level. It's not enough to be proficient at that level. And we have two other kids at the table completely agreeing. Right? We have one child at the table who has deep understanding of the story, and she figured that out within moments. And we contrast that with our friend Miss X. And we have no idea, even with the student who spoke the most, we have no idea what he even understands. And so when we think about this, we know what our students are thinking. We're assessing their use of strategies, whether or not they're comprehending, and whether or not they can accurately evaluate their peers' thinking. And then, of course, who else is pushing here? It's the students. And so when we think about the differences here, it's this. And this is the key concept that Doug Lamov always talks about, the difference between ping pong and volleyball. When you engage question, answer, question, answer, question, answer, it's ping pong, it's student to teacher, student to teacher, student to teacher, and the teacher is the final judge of whether anything is right or wrong. But when we teach explicitly these habits of discussion, and we teach children how to look one another in their eyes with an explicit lesson, and then we hold them accountable for months until that becomes a routine, then we're able to raise the rigor, okay? And we're able to raise all the thinking that's happening in the classroom. And so if we change the way that we talk about reading, we will change the way that our students talk about reading. Those students knew that it was not going to be question and answer style. They knew that it was not Miss Settle's student, Miss Settle's student, Miss Settle's student. They knew that she was going to push back a little bit. They were going to have to evaluate and do the work. And so when we think about what the habits of discussion are, they're the techniques for effective dialogue that increase student ownership and comprehension of material. And so when we think about why habits of discussion, and this is on page, can somebody tell me what, I can just turn my page over now. I think we're on page 6. Yep. And this is about why do we explicitly teach and prompt for habits of discussion? We all know that we want habits of discussion, but why do we explicitly teach them what the habit is and then prompt for it? The first reason is it maximizes student thinking. It maximizes peer-to-peer support. Through habits of discussion, you get every single child supporting one another. It minimizes the teacher intervention. Some of the first thing they mentioned was Miss Settles was not really a teacher in this clip. She was the mediator. And it allows for students to self-monitor and be metacognitive. Is it Dante? Is that right? Dante pointed out the question when Miss Settles said, what's missing from his retell? And so now all of a sudden the kids are doing the metacognition about the skill, and they're figuring out how well he's doing with the skill that they all know how to do. And in that beautiful moment when Alejandra said, no, I changed my thinking, this is what I think now. So it allows for the self-monitoring. And so then when we think about the benefits, there are a million. But one, when we explicitly teach these habits all the way through 12th grade, our kids will certainly be college ready. You think back to any seminar, any class, outside those first 101 classes that if you went to a big school were huge, it is all discussion-based. It's going to increase the rigor and the engagement in your own classroom, and it gives you a constant check for understanding. There is a huge difference between teaching that looks good and teaching that gets results. If we talk about teaching that looks good, we talk about the teacher. We talk about if the teacher knows her lesson plan, we talk about the teachers using taxonomy techniques, we talk about this, we talk about that. We're talking about teaching that gets results. We ask questions like, what percentage of time are students talking versus what percentage of time is the teacher talking? What does student work look like in this classroom? Not the high kids, everybody here, right? And have the discussion as one vehicle to bring that about.
I was going to say that's a good point because I think a lot of people watching the video may have said she's sitting at the table flipping through pages and pointing and she's not saying anything. What is she teaching them?
Yes. And then just to think about where this is in our framework of reading, this is our guided reading time. When we think of guided reading time, our metaphor is flying. So this is when the kids, where the teacher is a co-pilot. and the kids are supposed to be doing the flying. Now, if this were comprehension skills time, it would be more of the teacher doing more of the heavy lifting, but this is the guided reading where the kids are really learning how to do that. Okay, so just take a second in your notes. What keeps us from getting all of our classrooms to look like this? Okay, what is it? What is it? If you had to name it, it's this, this, and this. 1, 2, and 3. What is it? Just take a second by yourself and jot those down. Let's talk about a few keys for making this stick, for making it work, either in your classroom or in your school. So the first piece is you want to establish a trajectory. Okay, and this is whether you're a school leader or you're a school classroom teacher. Whatever it is, you want to know what you're teaching in September, what you're teaching in October, November, December, all the way through. You want to have a trajectory. Okay? Helpful, can you remind me of your name? Princeton. It's helpful if you have school-wide, right? Like for example, so at Leadership Prep Canarsie, our school-wide, every single year, regardless of grade, is you have to make eye contact with the person who's speaking, so that's the listening piece. You have to speak audibly, and you have to speak in complete sentences. And beyond just complete sentences, in kindergarten we teach them rephrase. So you're not allowed to say what my favorite color is green. So we just say rephrase. Okay? And we don't even teach what rephrase means, okay? We just wait it out, and then we'll say, can somebody help him? And then a kid will just say, my favorite color is. Okay, great, sweetheart, go ahead, my favorite color is. Okay, and they just naturally pick up that language of rephrase. So those are the school-wide things that we expect all the time. But then it looks different at each grade level, right? So in kindergarten, we're really trying to get peer-to-peer. We're really trying to get the kids to look at one another when they talk to one another. And it takes us all year to get that habit established in kindergarten. By first grade, we expect that to be internalized, and they have it, and so we can start on the learning to build and really getting into how to agree and how to disagree. And it's not going to be until 3rd or 4th grade that we introduce this idea of no hands or start to finish a conversation. That is not appropriate for kindergarten 1st or 2nd, so by 3rd or 4th grade, after these kids, like in Asia's 2nd grade classroom, by the time, that's Miss Settles, her first name is Asia, by the time they get into 3rd or 4th grade, they could have a no hands conversation where they facilitate what's happening from start to finish. And so then the number 2 is you have to use it authentically. You want to use a economy of language when you're explicitly teaching. You model the expectations and you practice, practice, practice. So when we unroll a habit, we typically unroll it whole class. So we don't unroll any habits in small group. We do it whole class, usually in a read aloud in the younger grades or a shared reading in the upper grades. So in the younger grades, it might just look something like this. Okay, friends, so today what we are going to work on is giving one another eye contact. Right now you're giving me all the eye contact, and I want you to share your eye contact with whomever you're speaking to and with whomever is speaking. Okay, so let's practice, okay? And then I would say, you know, so-and-so, will you please tell us what you did over the weekend? And she would say, here's what I did, and she talked to me the whole time, and I would say, pause. Here's what I want you to do. Now I want you to look at everybody in the classroom. And everybody in the classroom, I want you to look at her. Okay? They do it. Okay, beautiful. Let's try it one more time. Over here, Great. So it's 1 minute. Okay, now I'm going to read this book, and we're going to practice it while we read this book. And that's as intricate as the unrolling of the habit goes. Okay? In the upper grades, you might look at something just like this, a shared reading. Okay, friends, we're about to read this text, and one thing I'm noticing is that you all agree or disagree every time someone speaks. But that's not really how life works. How life works is we partially agree and we partially disagree. So I expect to be seeing you using this signal a little bit more, because right now you're all in or you're all out, and actually in life, it's more like this. And so today, I want to see you doing this, okay? And I want you to tell me the pieces that you agree with and the pieces that you disagree with, okay? And then I'm going to make a statement, right? I'm going to say something, and then I'm going to look for this, and we're going to have this conversation around the parts that they agree with me and the parts that they disagree with me, and then we get right into the text. So it needs to be authentic. And then the last piece I'll say is you have to expect mastery. You have to expect mastery. At the end of the month, if you have laid out 1 or 2 habits, it takes about a month's time within a classroom, you expect mastery. And so in the beginning, what it looks like is you prompt verbally and non-verbally, right? So with the kiddos in kindergarten, I'm going to say something like, talk to everybody, okay? And then a month later, I'm just gonna, and they'll know exactly what I mean. Okay, but I'm gonna do it every single time somebody speaks. And then in the older grades, I'm gonna say, remember, and then the next month, I'm just gonna do this if I think the kids are doing way too much of this and way too much of that. So those are just a few of the keys to helping these habits stick. So what I'd like for us to do right now is start to think about your specific setting. So if you actually know this on the same page. Your specific setting. So think about which habits are most important for September, October, November. And if you flip the page, oh, thank you so much. It's on this one. If you flip this page over, you'll see a monthly map. Okay? So what I want you to start doing is first start with the questions. So don't just start mapping things out, this is what I want to see. The questions are here to guide you to review the trajectory. Which of the habits are not happening consistently? That's the first question, right? Which of the habits are not happening consistently in your classroom or in your school? And then, out of those things that are not happening, what are the first ones you want to roll out? Okay? And again, you want to get the learning, learning to listen? Learning to share before the learning to build. Okay, that's the only criteria there. And then that final question of what feels most valuable. So before you start plotting it out, what's not present, okay, which ones are the first ones you want to prioritize, and then how do you want the rest of the year to kind of unfold. So let's start doing that by ourselves, and then we'll kind of work in the members at our table.
My students working partners, I'll be like, okay, like explain how you understand that, or just like they'll just tell the answer. That doesn't help them understand how to know that.
Right, that's true. Yeah.
We have about 17 minutes left together. So in our last 17 minutes, I want to tell you what I'm hoping for us to accomplish. One is to get some quick practice in around unrolling this habit. The second is to look at an organic conversation that came up around gay love with third grade students who had been taught the habit since kindergarten, and this was just a lunchtime conversation, so I'd like for us to take a look at that. And then the third thing I'd like to do is get a chance to just get anyone's email who would like additional resources. So things that we were talking about over here are additional clips, visuals, anything else that comes to your mind, and then we can just put emails straight to my computer and I can just send out after with resources. So in those 17 minutes, let's start in the beginning. So practice, right? So this is basically getting over the gap of I know it versus I'm doing it, right? And so the practice is the key component there. So what I'm gonna ask you to do is just take 1 minute to get the language out that you would use to introduce a habit in September. Whatever habit you're unrolling with your classroom, I'm gonna push everybody to do this, whether you're in the classroom right now or you're outside of the classroom. One habit, and then it's just as easy as friends or students, whatever you say, boys and girls. This is what I wanna teach you, and just get your language out. I'm gonna give you 2 minutes to do that now, and we're gonna hop up and practice.
Sure, the students are very audible, and the practice is going to be college voice. When you see or hear a child.
When we do that, I want you to elaborate on that. What does that mean? What are your actions?
So, Johnny, come in here, make sure your ears are listening, and when it is your turn, then being loud and proud and yelling and what I normally do now. I work in Wilmington
I'm so great if you don't.
So before we watch our final video, and then I'll put my email up so that anybody can just enter their email address, and I'll send all the soft copies plus additional resources. Please take 30 seconds and just write down your 2 key takeaways. I'll show you this final video. The hopes is when we teach habits of discussion explicitly, it's something the kids internalize and they take into every conversation they have. The background on this conversation is one child said to another child, "We love you," and that child said, "That's disgusting. Like you shouldn't love me," right? So they get this conversation around love, and then they get into boy and boy love and girl love, and they have a conversation on what they think about that. So I'm going to go ahead and play it, and then afterwards I'll put my email up. If you don't mind, just hold, yeah, thank you so much, just so everybody can hear it here, and there'll also be subtitles.
Love is not yours. Love is friend, brothers and sisters, child and mom, and for grown-ups, you might be both marriage. You know what stuff is to me? Boy and boy marriage, girl and girl marriage. Same-sex marriage is not. Because it's a boy and girl love each other, but if a boy and another boy loves each other, they should be happy together. They should be happy with each other, and they should be able to get married. I'm saying that this is gay disgusting, and I know no other kids are ever hear it, but I think we can. Boy and boy married. Of course, they will go to jail like that. It is so disgusting. Boy and boy married. Boy and boy not liking each other. If a man and a man woman get married, that is perfectly fine. Because that means that it's not your choice. It's not my choice. Now I understand why. I might think it's disgusting. Everyone might think it's disgusting. I think it's disgusting in some ways, but in other ways, it's perfectly normal because that's what they choose for themselves. I feel bad for them that they're happy because I can't really do nothing. If I'm straight, if I'm gay, I can't do nothing about what they're doing. Oh, I'm not. Hold on.
I'm asking, do you agree? So you do think it is okay that makes two people happy?
Yes, but in mine, for me, it's just very strange and disgusting. Because
but can we
talk about that?
I agree with one of those words, maybe for your own experience, but I disagree with one. So which one is sort of more accurate to describe how you're feeling? Strange or disgusting?
I want to be strange.
Good. Yeah.
Strange that I would like.
You don't understand it.
Yeah, I don't understand why I made what I would. That's why God made a boy and girl, because that has to be different. Like I see two girls in love and two children. I see two boys and two boys in love. They got a baby. And it doesn't matter. Like if a girl and a girl like each other, they want to marry. Like I'm fine with that. Like they gotta have to make gay marriages. Like look, I completely understand that. Just like you think that the love that we say is disgusting, and it just like me, I do know about it, and I don't know about the gay marriage, and I don't know about the gay marriage, the boy and girl, the boy and girl married. I say that's disgusting, and I don't know about it. We're telling you right now that it's not disgusting. I understood from Martin that way. And that doesn't mean, no, I understand gay marriage is good. I don't agree, but I understand that it's not discussing about it. You might not agree open-minded.
Thank you so much. I'm going to put the email up